You're listening to Grace, Geltman, and Weld on the Hammer Factor. Take it away, boys.
Kind of the reality. And if you're, at some point, if you're a member of Congress, and no matter how much money you're getting from ExxonMobil, if all your constituents are calling you and telling you that you're not representing their values, then you need to pay attention to that, and that's, at the end of the day, that's still the most important thing. And I think that if you're somebody who's more conservative minded and you have a Republican representative in Congress, you're in probably the most important position out of anybody in our whole community in terms of reaching out to your lawmakers and letting them know that, protecting public lands and environmental values are important to you. So please take that, position of responsibility seriously and put it to good use.
There you go. All right. Well, I love seeing all the participation at all the town halls, and it's the good thing about the current election, the presidential election, and I see more and more people more engaged with politics than I've ever seen really in my life. So it's interesting to see it unfold. I like it. Yeah,
I agree. I hope, I think if we survive the next 4 years, we'll be better for it. Maybe.
Yeah. It's just weird. From my standpoint, clean water has never seemed like a political thing to me. I don't know how that's become it's just like an obvious thing to me, clean water and clean air, but it has been politicized now. So that kind of scares me a little bit. So anyway, we digress. Moving down the list. One of our favorite topics that's probably been brought up, well, I know it's been brought up more than Whitewater SUP, is paddle length. Lewis, you sent me a link here to the PDXer group. Can you summarize what you saw there?
Oh, yeah. I just thought it was funny that we felt like we'd been beating the dead horse on this forever. And then there was like a 30-comment thread on the Portland Kayaker message board about paddle length. Somebody had posted on there and said that they were, 6'3", and we're just starting kayaking and wanted to know what length to paddle to get. And
it was a pretty wide selection of answers too.
Yeah, and most of them were wrong.
Right. I think the three of us right here can definitively answer this question once and for all.
Yes, if you're 6'3",
we have the final say on this issue.
There's no doubt.
If you're 6'3", get a 204.
Boom.
Yeah. Done.
And what I thought was interesting was there are people like posting on there who are like 5'11", and we're saying they were using like 194s.
Right.
And that's wrong. Like there's a small range of legitimate changes for preference, but if you're using a 194 and you're 5'11", you're ruining your technique.
It's empirically.
What's that?
Empirically wrong. It's not subject to interpretation.
Correct.
There should almost just be an unwritten rule that like 200 centimeters is your minimum. And then you decide where you want to go from there.
Yeah. I mean, if you're like 5'7", you can use like a 198, 197.
Right.
Or a 200.
Even then you do those like swaying paddle strokes where, you're like reaching out across the boat because the paddle's so short.
But unfortunately, I gave the...
But, huh?
I was going to say, unfortunately, I gave our show my usual level of preparation, which was 0, but I was intending to email Sylvan Poberai, who is the importer of Galasport paddles and also the Olympic slalom team coach, and have him definitively answer this question for us.
Who, if I'm not mistaken, has a PhD from some Slovenian university in paddle length.
We really
Sylvan will answer this question for us definitively.
Yeah, let's bring him on the show, Lewis. Let's get to the bottom of this because nobody seems to believe us, or at least they want to argue with us. So,
well, I think we should just right now identify ourselves as sort of the commission on some of these issues, and we are the final say.
Yeah,
that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
Okay.
More news. And John, you sent this one our way. This comes at us from our friends at Outside Online. The title is Instagram ruining the great outdoors?
Yes.
So summarize this. Tell us what you think about this.
I think the gist, and actually I have to shout out to Max Blackburn who said this to me. I don't really take a look at Outside Magazine too often anymore, but I think the gist of it was that people go to these cool places, put them on their Instagram page or whatever, however you want to phrase it, and identify where the location is, and all of a sudden your secret overlook in close to an urban area is overrun with people who want to take a selfie in the exact same spot. And I think I think the broader question here, and something I've been meaning to discuss for a while, is technology ruining our sense of adventure in general. I remember when we used to plan these big expeditions, there was no Google Maps or Google Earth or Google anything, and there was no online searching. And if you got hurt in the middle of nowhere, you were probably just going to die before anyone got to you, but you're hanging it out for sure. Like, I remember our first big trip to the Arctic, we had TPCs, tactical pilot charts, and ONCs, operational navigational charts, which are 1 to 1 million. Right, 1 to 1 million or 1 to 500,000 was the best resolution we could get, with huge chunks of that just big white saying, elevation not thought to exceed 8,000 feet. That was as good as idea of where you were going as you could possibly find, unless you sent Wick Walker a box of chocolates and he sent you some weird military map you weren't supposed to have. So that's the question. I mean, what's technology doing to our sense of adventure and exploration? I'll let you discuss.
Well, man, there's a lot of layers there. Man, I don't know. I think I use those TPC charts a lot for a lot of trips, and you're right. There were just blank areas with a due note on there, and that's basically, you knew the river went through there, and there was definitely a greater sense of, I don't know, if you've been there, you take a picture of it and post it, have you ruined it for other people? Is that kind of the topic here? I don't know. It's tricky. I've read through his article, and there's a couple different points. One is, I personally am a fan of more people using public lands, more people getting outside, and if they're inspired by an Instagram picture to go hike somewhere, to go paddle somewhere, I think that's a good thing, because I think the more people that use something, the harder it is to lose it. Now, from a selfish standpoint, it may be a bummer, but I think from a broader perspective, I like seeing more participation, personally.
Well, here's an example. So when I first moved to Confluence 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there was a rumor of a plane that had crashed out in the middle of the woods, right? Like a Cessna or something like that. So I spent 2 years between talking to locals and sort of combing around the woods before I found this thing, and I found it. And it's still there, and you could go there and find the wreckage and find people's clothes still in the wreckage, and all sorts of big pieces of the plane. And I know where it is. And it is in the middle of nowhere. And I have never taken a picture of it. I've never, put a geocache there or made an Instagram post and posted it, with GPS coordinates or whatever on it, and the EXIF data, and to this day, you can still go there if you know where to look and go through the plane pretty much exactly as I saw it 15 years ago. But I know sooner or later someone's going to stumble across that, and the word's going to be out, and it's going to be picked through, and that'll be the end of it,
Yeah, so that article touched on, rather than, sharing your experience or sharing your photo, but not necessarily giving all the information of where it's at. So would that be kind of a way you would lean on that topic, John?
I would see no reason to share whatsoever. Gotcha. I don't really care what people want to know. I don't really care if people know that I went there or not.
Yeah, I think that's right, man. I mean, I just, I don't it's driving me nuts out here. Like, I see people walking down to Spirit Falls now. Like, I mean, it's like half of Portland is out there, and I blame kayakers for that. That is where that came from. It's, like kind of a dubious trail. It's kind of an area that's starting to see some impact from erosion. And, I saw the woman down there the other day with a front backpack on with like a white fluffy dog in there, and somebody else like listening to music like loud enough that everybody can hear it, and it's like they're just going down there to go, you know, take pictures for Instagram, and it's like, I don't know. And I mean, beyond that, it's like, I think that in a lot of ways you get to a point where you're ruining it for yourself because you're not immersing yourself in the experience anymore. You're thinking about how you're going to portray that experience on the internet. And it's,
You think that'll ever go away? You think it'll go away like Whitewater SUP is going to go away someday?
I don't know. I think Facebook and Instagram have tapped our product, or have tapped into, or whatever, some core part of human behavior. You know what I mean? And people are responding to it exactly as they're biologically supposed to, evidently. I don't know. I've never ever understood the culture of sharing like that exists as it does right now. I've never understood it. I don't have a Facebook account. I have an Instagram account, but it's just, you know, I don't know if you've seen it. It's pretty. I have about 5 people who follow me.
I follow it. Very bunch of old houses.
Yeah, weird stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think the Weld family takes up a substantial portion of my Instagram feed.
I don't know, it's an interesting topic, and you know, it's
we're old. I think that's the real problem here.
Could be.
It could be.
I think we're old, and I think well, you and I grew up in this environment where the idea that, you know, at Valley Mill, where the idea that you would do something to then tell people about it afterwards was like the greatest sin that you could commit, right? Like our kayaking guru is Tom McEwen, who with Dan Schnernberger and was it with Wick, went out and did the first ascent of Great Falls and proceeded to tell nobody about it, and to this day won't say who exactly went first.
Yeah,
and it's like we had this.
Was it Norma Bellingham? Schnur? No, it wasn't Norm.
I think it was Wick.
I forget. You might be.
Regardless, that day is done. You know?
Yeah,
it's done. But I think that we're the last. It's like I have this like Catholic guilt about like claiming something like that. You know what I mean? It's like I remember like overtly mocking people when we were kids about like, oh, you're only going to run it because there's a camera here, or like what would you run it if somebody was going to take your picture or something like that. Like that was like just like a constant topic for teasing.
That's how you made fun of people back in the day.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know. I think you're right. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to. Looking at McEwen as a source of our feelings on this might be legitimate. You know, I mean, I feel like baked into what he taught us was the idea that you don't need to go out and tell anybody about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about this?
You know,
one?
you do.
What about this one? You hear some people talking about doing something, and you've done it before. And let's say you're on a car ride or something like that. And hold on, sorry guys. And you hear somebody talking about going or running this drop or doing this little tributary in there, and you've done it in the past. Do you tell them that you've done it and what all's in there, or do you just listen to the story and be stoked for them?
I don't know. That's kind of different, I guess. You know, I'd tell him I did it. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, recently that happened to me. I didn't tell him I'd done it. Though.
Knowing me, I'd tell him and then ask me what's in there, and I'd give him some smart-ass, useless answer.
Oh, man.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, we had a verification that Oliver Grossman was the first person to run Douglas.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he had probably run it twice before anyone else had run it.
Oliver Grossman.
And probably told, probably told no one about it. Find no pictures.
It was someone probably was there watching and mentioned it. Yeah, that's why that's why that information was so hard even just to find out, is because he didn't tell anybody. I'm sure. You see,
that's how you become a secret legend.
Right.
Oh, man. All right. Well, moving on with the show. Do you guys want to get into the? You guys want to bring on Cory, Junior Freestyle National Champ? Let's hold Jeremy off. Let's hold Whitewater SUP off. Let's get Cory on the line here and get a freestyle report. What do you guys think?
All right, 30 seconds of freestyle. This is like the Lewis Geltman episode.
That's what we talked about. That's why we called it the "We're just gotta have to get through it" episode. All right, let me find Cory here.
Should we talk about that La Crusade pot briefly while we're waiting for?
But how's this? I remember when we started IR, and Donna Klodek, who was a slalom racer who used to make kayaking gear under the brand Rapid Style, was kind of a racer-oriented brand of gear, but she sort of made some general kayaking gear also. She used to say, "I don't understand playboating. I hate playboating. I'm never going to make gear for playboating." I remember thinking that's really dumb, because if they're buying gear, you should just make it, right?
Right.
Do you think there's an analogy between that and an SUP? I'm repeating Donna's mistakes.
I think that's exceedingly possible.
I don't think so much at all. I don't think that so much at all. And everybody knows that you're not anti it. I think that where it comes from is it's this very, very, very small minority. It's making all of this noise, and from your standpoint, is like, I'm just sick of hearing about it.
I have nothing against SUP, but like I said, it's just so small, and I don't think people realize how small it is. And people keep saying you should do this for SUP. I'm like, the sport needs to be about 40 times bigger before we ever even consider doing that. You know what I mean?
There's some guy in the parking lot at Anglers Inn right now about to paddle his SUP up to Maryland Chute, telling his buddy that he should not be wearing IR gear because John Weld hates suppers.
I want this to go.
All right. Well, let's see. Cory, are you on the line? Can you hear us?
Yep.
All right.
We're just going to keep talking about SUP if you just don't mind, just sitting there and being quiet.
All right, Cory. Well, on the line we have Cory Sheehan. Is that how you say your last name properly, Cory?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
Steele.
Well, so the Cory Steele. So we do this event on the green called the Green River Rodeo. Cory would come out, and it's pretty low key. It's basically all the boys just come out and we kind of show off some tricks, and everybody signs their name up at the entry. And when Cory signed up, it looked like Cory Steele, and so the whole time I'm announcing him as Cory Steele, and I'm like name titling him in the videos, Cory Steele. And so the next year I'm like, Cory Steele's back, at like the competitor meeting. Everybody giggles, and I'm like, what is everybody laughing about? Well, it took me like 3 years to finally figure out that he really wasn't Cory Steele. So I hope I didn't offend you there, Cory.
No, not at all.
So, Cory, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and then we'll get into the national championships that you recently competed in.
I'm Cory Sheehan. I'm originally from Kentucky, but I recently moved down to Asheville, North Carolina. And yeah, man, I do a lot of freestyle and a lot of creeking, just try to keep it diverse.
Well, walk us through, let's get right into the national championship. None of us have been down, Lewis, Weld, or I have never been down to the feature down there in Columbus. Walk us through the competition and the venue.
Dude, it is an awesome wave down there. It is definitely the best wave I've ever surfed in the Southeast. It's got a nice retentive foam pile, but it's also really fast, and you can do every wave trick on there, and you can even loop in there. Like, you can do everything.
Where is this?
And
what river is this on?
The Chattahoochee.
So
Columbus, Georgia.
Set the scene. It's pretty much like an urban environment. What's it look like?
You are totally in the middle of a city. Like, you are a few minutes walk from like all these bars and like downtown. You're like just off Main Street. So there's like all kinds of people just like walking around, and there's all these bars you can go to, and there's so much food. Like, we would go eat lunch somewhere different every day. It's a really cool city to be in.
And why is this just now getting notoriety? Is it are they releasing water recently down there? Do you know any history of this place?
So they just recently put the Whitewater Park in a few years ago, but from what I've heard from the locals, it actually used to be better before the Whitewater Park. There was all these different features and it wasn't as regulated. But now that there's there, it's more consistent, and people are just now starting to figure out that this wave is here and it's this good, and it's starting to gain publicity.
And how many days a year does this wave run? Do you know?
It runs every. I'm not sure how many days a year, but the river runs just about every day. And even when there's not a release, there's still features to play in. Like, the wave is the main spot, but there's so many other waves and holes, like, just upstream of it. There's, like, 4 features and, like, 100 yards right there that you can play at. So it's a really good spot to train freestyle because you can do everything. You can do waves, you can do holes, big holes, small holes, everything.
And is there a little local scene popping up down there?
Yeah, for sure. There's a bunch of local paddlers down there. Hunter, Kadich, and Bennett Smith live down there, as well as Tom Dole. Those guys are out there as well as tons of just local paddlers who are just getting into it.
Those two are like the parkour video kids, right?
Yep.
Okay. So
They're crazy.
How old are you, Cory?
I'm 17.
17. So I got one more year where I got to sign your waivers.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. So tell me about the competition. Did you expect to win? Were you just going down there for fun?
I was just going down there to just start out the season, get used to competing. I was definitely not expecting to win at all. I was just like, man, if I made it to finals, that'd be so awesome. There's all these people here watching. And then made it to finals and managed to throw down a good ride my first run. And somehow those guys didn't beat me. I don't know how. I was expecting Tom and Hayden to throw down a higher ride, but I got lucky.
Do you think it was
how deep was the field for men's juniors?
Men's juniors? I didn't hear.
How many people were in the field? How many people were you competing against?
I think it was 15.
That's a decent turnout. How many people were down there, men, women, overall, you think?
There's like 60 plus competitors.
Cool. Oh, that's not bad.
That's all nationals.
Yeah, for real.
That includes about 45 people who wandered over from a picnic to watch.
Oh, well. So Cory, how does something like that compare to like the Green River Rodeo?
It's definitely a super different scene. Like, Green River Rodeo is just super grassroots. You're just there with your boys chilling. It's really low key. You know, you're just like this. You know, there was just like so many just tourists out there, and just like there's like 1,500 people there watching.
Wow.
And just like, yeah, there was a ton of people, and like none of them were kayakers. Just like total city folk. Just like great people watching. And it was definitely like the people of freestyle are a lot different. You know, it's a little bit more competitive and more, you know, people are more serious. But everybody's still out there having fun and laughing, having a good time.
Nice.
So tell us what the world of competitive freestyle paddling is like now. Like, this was the national championships, you said?
Yep.
And so is that also the team selection for the freestyle worlds, or is that something different?
No, the U.S. team trials is going to be in the end of May in Buena Vista, Colorado, and that'll determine who goes to World Championships. And
where are the World Championships this time around?
They're down in Argentina in November.
Huh? On what kind of feature?
In a hole down there.
Gotcha. And so are there a lot of kind of competitive events at this point where kind of the top guys are all there, or is it become much more like local than it used to be? What's the...
I'd say overall over the past few years, there's been a lot less local events. It's more of just like the bigger events like GoPro and the Colorado Tour and stuff like that people have gone out to. But it seems to be picking back up. You know, there's a competition out at the Nantahala Outdoor Center this weekend I'll be at, and some more stuff like that popping up that are just like local events.
And so you're 17. So you were born in 2000. Is that right?
Yep.
So, man, that's wild to me. Me and Weld and Grace, we're all old. So
Yourself.
Weld often likes to harken back to the glory days of freestyle kayaking in the late 90s and early 2000s, which obviously you were not around for. Like, what do you make of that? Do you like ever like look back at the video, or do you like hear people talking about the glory days of freestyle kayaking and sort of like what do you make of that, of like the arc of the sport?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I'm just like pretty jealous I didn't get to kayak back then. You know, I hope the sport sort of one day goes back, you know, in that direction and grows more. You know, I'm always hoping it grows more. But I wonder what it would have been like, you know, to compete in all the competitions back then and everything. I'm sure it was a lot different, but it seemed like it was a lot more, I don't know, mainstream. It had a lot more like media and pull and all that stuff.
Yeah. I guess I sort of had a similar experience in slalom in a way. Like, I feel like kind of the glory days of slalom, or at least in the U.S., were maybe a little bit past when I got into racing. Yeah. So I guess I can sort of identify with that. It's sort of an odd thing.
Mm-hmm.
But is play boating now big enough that's something that you can? I mean, what are you gonna do? Are you going to college next year, or what's the plan?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to go to Western Carolina, and not really sure what I'm going to major in or what I'm going to do, but just trying to kayak, and I really just do it for fun. I mean, I grew up doing a lot of play boating here in the Southeast. I started play boating around the time that the World Cup and the World Championships were in the U.S., and it was real big. Then lately I've been doing a whole bunch of creeking, but I feel like the creeking just helps me train for freestyle too.
Yeah, it all
bleeds over. You're gonna like hit the road next year and just and travel the country doing freestyle. Is that something that could happen, or is it gonna be a little more casual than that?
I think if I took a gap year, I'd probably never go back to school. So if I'm going to school, I'm gonna go, but I'm definitely gonna do big road trip this summer around the West and try to do that every summer.
And so your road trip, do you have like a hit list of rivers, or do you have a hit list of competitions, or how are you planning out your road trip?
I'm trying to go out to Colorado for the team trials starting out, and then work my way through the competitions in Colorado up to hopefully North Fork, and then maybe out to California.
Nice one.
So whose boats do you paddle?
How many boats?
No, whose, like what brand?
Oh, Piranha.
Piranha.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
You wanna real quick question here, Cory. Where do you practice at around here in Nashville?
I go out to Eternity Hole a lot and NOC, and I just got to the green and a slicey boat. I think that's really the best training I do.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, you want to give a shout out to any of your sponsors or any plugs before we move on here?
Yeah, man. Piranha Kayaks and Watershed, Werner Paddles, Kokatat. They've all been hooking me up. I really appreciate the support.
All right. Well, boys, you got anything else you'd like to add to Cory here before we let him get back to being Cory?
No. I could. I don't want to open a whole can of wax. We could go on for hours about different things, but no, I think we can.
All right, Steele. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Sweet, man. Thanks for having me.
You're gonna be.
Thanks for coming on, man.
We're probably gonna do the rodeo second week of August this year. So you gonna be around then?
Sounds good. I will.
All right, man. Well, we'll see you on the river.
All right, I'll see you.
Bye-bye.
All right, see you, Cory.
Cheers.
Hang on, just
National Freestyle Champion Junior, right? Should he be making? If it was any other sport, he'd be making a living off of this right now.
If he was a national champion, you're right. Yep.
What do you think? How do you think it is for the junior national champion in SUP?
Jesus Christ!
Right? At the moment,
He's probably way bigger
probably
deal than
about-
Cory.
making like a salary from Red Bull with 2 commas in it right now.
I was gonna guess that if you were the junior class in SUP is like under 50.
Cory's a really good guy. I'm so happy he's getting ready to be 18 because
I was going to ask him, do you think Piranha pays him, or do you think he gets free boats? Or
he just gets a deal on boats. He doesn't even get them free.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you know how it is. It's a small sport in Whitewater, and he does a good job. And I don't know. All I think about when I think about Cory is signing his waiver, knowing that he's going to throw a wave wheel off a gorilla, and I got to watch it. And that's just what I think of. But big congrats to him.
Throwing wave wheel off gorilla, man, that's pretty ballsy. Have you done that, Grace?
I have.
Have you really?
Yeah, I have, but
I thought you weren't supposed to brag about this kind of thing.
It wasn't on video. Actually, you know what? I should just act like I never did it.
All right. Did you do it on purpose?
I did do it on purpose.
Yeah.
One time at low water, I went over the handlebars and piton and got stitches, and that was not on purpose. But
James Bird kickflipped it.
Gorilla?
Not on video. Didn't tell anybody about it. Or, I mean, he told somebody about it, but yeah.
Dude, I think that's going to be the next thing in the rodeo this year. I think somebody, probably Pat Keller, if he's healthy, is going to kickflip gorilla.
So gnarly.
Yeah, that's next level.
See, just because we planted that seed, I can almost guarantee you it's going to happen. So, anyhow, you guys ready to get into this Whitewater SUP or what?
Oh, Lewis. You able to handle this?
I'm going to check my email, but let me know.
All right. Well, now we're bringing on to the hammer factor. Bringing on to the hammer factor, Jeremy Cass. I just sent out a message. We'll see if he chimes in here.
We do viewer mail today. Do we have viewer mail?
Yeah, we have some viewer mail.
All right.
Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you guys see me or hear me?
Yeah, you're loud and clear. Jeremy, welcome to the Hammer Factor.
Thanks, John.
Give us a little background, Jeremy. Tell us where you're from, and just give us a little. Who are you?
All right. Well, Jeremy Cass. I'm from Maine. Longtime paddler. Probably started paddling and surfing when I was about 10 years old. Going to Camp Highlander in North Carolina.
Ooh.
But at that time, I was growing up in Florida, so started surfing around the same time. You know, during high school, I really focused on sports, but back in college, where I went to Unity College up in Unity, Maine, little hippie school, really got back into whitewater paddling, a lot of rivers up that way, West Branch, Penobscot, Kennebec, and really followed the instructor track through the ACA, got up to the L5, whitewater kayak instructor, also swiftwater rescue instructor, but traveled around the world kayaking, trying to chase that as long as I could. And, recently, about 3 years ago, I had to move down to southern Maine, a little place called North Berwick. It's about 5 miles from the coast. And, from there, I kind of made a radical move. Instead of getting a new creek boat, I got a inflatable whitewater SUP and started paddling rivers on that thing. So it's been an interesting and really, really cool experience to experience rivers from that way. And it's always kind of just it's allowed me to keep in the water in a lot of different ways through either surfing and or whitewater, kind of the perfect marriage, if you will, at this point.
So what's the scene like up in Maine these days? Well, whitewater in general, not just supping.
Well, you guys talked a little bit about Smalls to the Wall, your last episode, and I know those guys really appreciated those shouts. We have a couple rivers that run pretty much every single day of the year, the Kennebec and the West Branch of the Penobscot. And then we have a lot of creeks in the area that are just pumping right now. We have a really good snowpack, but all of our creeks really start in kind of marshes, so they hold a pretty long time. They're mostly located in the western mountains, but you'll basically find rivers up and down the state we're pretty. It's very, very rural place. 90% forests, and most of the kind of commerce and jobs are found in the southern half of the state. But with Whitewater, there's always there's a big rafting scene around those release rivers, the Kennebec and the West Branch, and therefore, a lot of the guides or the young people that grow up in those areas really get into whitewater kayaking or get into rafting and ducking. River boarding is getting pretty popular around here as well. So, there's kind of a growing culture here, and I think a lot more paddlers from Maine are beginning to travel to places far and away or down south to kind of spread the stoke or be part of that bigger stoke that is, whitewater and whitewater kayaking.
Well,
why do I feel like Maine's like a different country almost in terms of whitewater? Like I feel like I don't know anybody from Maine who paddles, and I don't know any of the rivers up there. I don't know anything about it. It's like talking about like paddling in some Scandinavian country or something, or some weird province of Canada.
It really is. It's isolated up here, John. It really, really is. And but I think what happens is that we do have a lot of whitewater. I think Maine is in general, we're always like 20 years behind the times. The music we're listening up here, it's like AC/DC and like hair band right now. Like that stuff is huge. So, John, I totally know what you're saying. I think what you're going to find is that those pockets of areas we're really, really, really trying to bring it to the greater community. We have like a huge, canoeing is super popular here. It's part of the culture and the hunting and trading and the Penobscot people. So that's a big part of the culture, but I think also because it's such an old population, allowing that kind of like new school of like hardcore whitewater kayaker hucking themselves off like the big drops or charging big water, that's always kind of been on the fringe, but now it's really coming in the mainstream. But we don't have any like paddling shops really. We have like one or two throughout the state.
Where do you get your gear?
A lot of people order through CKS. Main Sport Outfitters is on the coast near Rockland, and that has some whitewater paddling gear, and that's where Andrew Cooper works. Let's see. We also have a Kittery Training Post, which is down here by me. My local surf loves the fact rivers, and they have some really good is in Western Massachusetts. A lot of us will go there or through there.
What are you taking notes?
I know all these places. It's New England in general has been a tough nut to crack. It used to be a really, really, and I know a lot of other people in similar parts of the industry that us feel the same way. There was a booming paddle sports economy in New England 15, 16, 17 years is a lot more anemic nowadays, and a lot of us just can't really put our finger on why that's happened.
Paddling like an old extra with like a crankshaft paddle on like the dries of the Deerfield.
It's really a kind of a black hole in New England. Traveling around and talking to other industry folks, they just like they can't get anybody to buy their gear. I hear you guys talking all the time. You get hundreds of emails about pro deals and those kind of things, but there's just not a lot of jobs or infrastructure around here to kind of support that stuff. So, the younger people are always kind of scrambling or looking to get their gear on a real fixed budget. So it's a black hole. Jackson has a lot of paddlers up here, but that's kind of it.
So in terms of natural resources, I mean, if you paddle much like, let's say, West Virginia or North Carolina, how does Maine compare in terms of mountains and rivers and quality of whitewater? I mean, is this a gigantic is this like the best kept secret in whitewater kayaking in Maine, or is it less mountainous, or is the quality of rivers different, or what's the big picture there?
The quality is definitely on par with West Virginia and that area for sure. Not as steep or as concentrated as North Carolina and the South, but really all those rivers and areas can be accessed via the highways and or backlogging roads, which is super, super fun. Another kind of cultural thing up here. What happens in those towns that are near those big rivers, like the West Branch or the Kennebec, yeah, the rafting outfits and tourists come in to rafting support those towns, but they basically go dead and unpopulated during the winter months, or are only frequented by snowmobilers and those kind of things. So in terms of, and all of our stuff is pretty much roadside. So you're always looking at a decent put in or a takeout that's on some sort of public and or public use road. So that part makes it really, really easy. You just got to travel a little while to get to like a city. You know, the Green has Asheville right there, or, you know, there's just not the infrastructure or the commercial viability for some of that stuff.
Jeremy, I'm sure you've checked this out, but Weld, have you seen Alden Bird's book, Let It Rain, the guidebook for...
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a guidebook for New England, Maine, a little bit in Canada, New York.
That's good.
Just like unbelievably good guidebook. Like I feel like it has all of, I don't know, like I never imagined that I would like sit on my couch and like fantasy kayak New England, but you like look at this book and you're like, oh man, like this is awesome.
Is there still
it has
untapped first descents in Maine? I mean, class 5 ones that are in the middle of nowhere, or is that they're pretty much gone in Virginia, but I'm still picturing them existing somewhere in this country.
There may be a few. They're really tough. I did one with a group of friends, I want to say back in 2011. The lower stretch of the Wasatacook stream had been paddled, but its headwaters was in Baxter State Park, which doesn't allow any kind of motorized vehicles or any of those kind of things. So it was really about a 6-mile bushwhack into the headwaters where we were able to get the upper section. However, I kind of think there's some drainage ditches off of Katahdin or other mountains that are accessible kind of by the Appalachian Trail, most likely, in that section that are still doable. I mean, I remember hiking through the 100-mile wilderness and just seeing like some streams and some waterfalls that are like very, very, very runnable. So I think for somebody who's ambitious and has got a strong back and a good backpacking system, and is really, really tenacious, it's just really looking at the map and seeing what's out there.
So, Jeremy, a couple things here. There's 2 things that I need from you on this show today. One of them is to help John Weld get over his phobia of SUP. Mm-hmm. And the second is to perk Lewis Geltman's interest in Whitewater SUP. So if you can pull both of those things on, you will be a legend on the Hammer Factor.
Before doing that, I would like to suggest that starting by talking about kayaking was a good tact.
Yeah.
We're building the Golden Bridge here, guys.
You know, I think you got to look at it from the perspective right now that I'm not sure Whitewater SUP is like this standalone thing. You know, whitewater kayaking to me certainly is. It stands alone. It holds up. There's a culture around it, and there's shows like this. There's competitions, online competitions. You know, there's people and legends and so on and so forth. You know, with Whitewater SUP, I think you got to string it along like, you know, the riverboarding, people running things in duckies, rafting. You know, rafting definitely stands alone. I think we can all agree on that too. But you got to kind of put it into all those pieces. And with Whitewater SUP, I mean, it's kind of already begun to stretch out in that kind of ways to pursue the river now that people are like river surfing all these waves without a paddle and just kind of dropping in prone and standing up. So I think, the first thing to do is kind of look at it from that perspective. But the way that I approach it is probably similar to what you all talk about quite a bit, is that style is everything. I don't really want to try to beater down everything on my SUP just to put a notch on my belt. It's that I want to style stuff. And I want to use my swiftwater rescue skills, my knowledge of whitewater, to kind of get down the river and have a good time and make it look good. And I think when you kind of look at it like that, or start picking off rivers that, you're not going to throw a huck fest with Whitewater SUP at the Little White. First of all, the community wouldn't. Yeah, right? It would ruin the whole scene. But you can do the middle sections and really kind of style everything out, like Dan Gavere has, or Taylor Robertson, or you guys all know somebody that's like kind of crossed over to SUP at this point. But I think they're doing it for a new challenge and just a different way. I think a lot of paddlers are just going to have a SUP in their quiver as something to do, and also that their like wife or girlfriend or mother-in-law can hop in at the lake, in between river trips as well.
So let me ask you this: is there any gear, or are there any things that you need when you're out on a whitewater SUP that are not provided by an IR or anything? Is there any holes that could be filled there, or is it just all crossover stuff?
I really believe it's all crossover stuff. I think I heard a couple episodes back, John talking about getting requests for make something specific, some sort of piece of gear for whitewater SUP or something like that. But I think between mountain biking equipment for some body armor, dry suits. I love IR stuff. I had a plaid dry suit forever. It was kind of a very iconic thing for me. The PFDs and helmets, shoes, those kind of things can all really be whitewater specific by the manufacturers that are currently out there right now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment.
Yeah, I don't think we need to like invent any kind of special gear. The only piece of gear that I really see that's specialized to it are the quick release leashes and maybe some of those rubberized fins, or not using a fin at all. But some of the technology going into the boards, especially the inflatables, I can take mine and put it between two sawhorses, jump up and down, and the thing won't move when it's inflated. So, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, right on. So
how far are you from Newfoundland?
Oh man, I'm like super far from that right now. I'm at the very bottom of the state. Right. So it's probably like a 10 to 12 hour drive.
Have you done much paddling up there before?
No, every time I traveled, I either went south towards you all or out of the country. So, I never really got a chance to cross over into Canada.
Yeah, I've done a bunch of kayaking in Newfoundland, whitewater kayaking. It is phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember expeditions from like Ben Stokesbury and EJ going up there and just finding like huge drops. There's still probably a lot of untapped stuff up there still, huh?
No doubt, yeah. And then also I've always looked at the other side of that over in the Torngats up in Labrador. I know there's a bunch of there. So
there are like polar bears there and stuff, and like you could get stalked. And
do you ever do any stuff like goes into the Golden St. Lawrence, like the what are some of the rivers up there, Grace? You've done a couple of those.
Yeah, you did some of those.
Yeah, the Macatna and the.
Oh right.
And the the Iguanish and the
right.
Oh God, what's the one that I've done like 3 times? Yeah. Oh, it's the famous one up there. I'll think of it here in a second.
How far is that from? Excuse my ignorance of the geography.
That's a long way. That's a long way, dude.
It's really out there from here. Those are, you're still looking at float planes and couple day drives to that area from here, even from central Maine, which is probably, you know, a good 3 hours from where I am. I mean, you're definitely looking at a border crossing and then getting pretty deep into that area, as far as I know.
The Romaine. There we go.
The Romaine.
Yeah. Good whitewater. I mean, the Romaine from the border was 36 hours to where we got on the plane. So it's way out there.
Oh, Lewis, you ever paddle in Newfoundland?
No, I always kind of wanted to. I mean, I remember like when you and Andy and Tom were going up there back in the day, and I was always kind of like someplace we thought about wanting to go. But I feel like
it's like
since I moved out west, like going back east for a kayaking trip has been seems sort of daunting. You know, like given all the logistics out there, it's like there's not anywhere to like fly into. Or
I think you're looking at like
I'd like to do it.
Year of planning, six months of planning. You know, for a lot of those rivers, you need a really strong team and planes. You know, it's kind of like the East Coast BC. I'm not really sure how else to describe it from my knowledge and understanding.
So back to the Whitewater SUP. So down here we kind of have like a crew of like 20 or 30 guys who are out doing missions on their boards. And they
Grace, you just keep taking us away from like expedition kayaking and like and pulling us SUP in the southeast. See what we're doing here?
Do you have a crew up there, Jeremy? Are you the one guy on the board paddling down the river? Kind of paint the scene for me up there.
So yes and no. The past couple of years, I spent the spring. Not this spring. I'm more into just kind of chasing what I want to run, but I went to all the kind of canoe and club boater races. We're talking like, you know, those old fiberglass 13-foot whitewater boats that like don't even have a seat in them, but everybody's just trying to go as fast as they can with like a bike helmet on down class 2 and 3. So I did a lot of that stuff. I helped out with the ACA Whitewater Nationals, and that's just that's held on a section of the Penobscot River, and it went from like 1 SUP participant to 3 over the past couple of years, and I just
300% increase.
Yeah, I've heard of a couple more people doing those races this year. This past weekend, there was 2 other SUP people with me, so I think and now that it's a little bit more visible, and raft guides are starting to see it a little bit more. A couple people that are into all different sorts of whitewater, get all sorts of kind of weird kayaks, you know, surf kayaks or whatever, are probably going to give it a try. But in terms of like blowing up or having like this like dedicated crew that goes out and like does rock hops, you know, in the boulder gardens and spins and is like surfing every wave. Not so much. But I mean, I think that's part of the cool part of it, because all these rivers that maybe I wrote off at some point in my career, if you'd call it, are like totally opening up to me. And not only that, it's like sections that I was so bored in any boat that was just like a float trip, even though it was like big water class 3 or 4. Is now just really challenging and becoming like test pieces and those kind of things. And I get that sense of like humbleness and fear and sense of like wanting to go back, and that I hadn't had in a while. So, I mean, those pieces are all cool, and I hope folks can get stoked on that, but it's not like the surf cruise that you hear about like on the Potomac. I mean, I would have loved to have gone down to Noli Fest maybe next year. Probably would like to go do the lower Golly.
You should come down for the Battle of the Broad. So the reason I was bringing that up is because last year in the Battle of the Broad, we had like 36 people stand up paddling this race, you know, and Cory was recently just before you got on talking about 60 people at this national championship. So I'm just trying to paint some numbers here for my co-host here on the show.
Rod? Is it like, what section is it?
It's so there's a distance race that goes through Asheville, and then there's a Section 9 race on Sunday, so it's a 2-day event.
Oh, the Section 9 is cool. I've seen some people doing that. I paddled it once a long time ago. You know, so I mean, Lou, you're out on the West Coast right now. You got all sorts of people going out there. I think, somebody just dropped a Mainer, Mike McVeigh just dropped Outlet Falls.
That was a Mainer.
Yeah, I mean, he ran with Laco.
Wait, this is
Outlet Falls and an SUP board.
Boogie board.
No,
it's a bodyboard.
A bodyboard. Yeah.
Is that?
That's Maine. That's how they do it in Maine, dog. Dude, you need to start making like a segment of gear Mainer brand. You know what I mean?
So
I saw that video.
I had no idea that dude was a
guy,
Mainer. That just makes it so much better.
Yeah.
I watched this video of this guy boogie boarding Outlet Falls.
He swam Outlet Falls head first.
He
just like very little thing, like just the length of like his forearms, and then just like lawn darts it. But I would say the perfect. I'm watching this video and I'm like sitting here laughing at breakfast, and my girlfriend comes over and wants to know what I'm laughing at, and she looks at it, and she just has the perfect reaction, which is, "Huh." That was it. like that nailed it.
I'm just so happy he's from Maine.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't like look at it like that. That's just like the extreme end of that spectrum I'm talking. But if it's low water and if it's your local run or those other sections of the White Salmon or some of those other kind of things, like it can be a lot of fun to go out with some friends and just kind of tool around and surf some waves and especially when you're jonesing for the big stuff. So man, give it a try. But I kind of can appreciate the absurdity of some of it.
No, I mean, I think that's exactly right. It's like a lot of the boys will go out when it's like low water blues here in the summer and go take the SUP out on the lower and just something to do at the end of the day. And like, I think if you live in the Potomac too, I mean, I couldn't think of a better thing to do in the Potomac in the middle of summer than that.
Yeah, and the water's 80 degrees, and I can.
Yeah, and I mean the falls on the Potomac are gnarly, man. Like I ran those once, but it's serious, and not every paddler is up to that. So, but I couldn't see like it being very much fun in a playboat doing the below the falls or anything else. Maybe some of the surf waves, but on a board, it could be a lot of fun.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it's a big scene there now.
It really is. Hey, John, what was running the upper gully like on your board? Because I remember a time when like there was some pictures of you around in that LL stand up board and like doing some stuff out west. Like, what was your goal? Were you just like, I'm gonna knee everything, or I'm gonna stand up and fly into everything, or like, I'm just kind of curious.
Well, let me paint some backstory on this. So the night before, we were getting a little rowdy, had a few beverages, and a guy who was working for me at the time, Will Lyons, I bet him that he wouldn't run around all of Golly Fest, around the entire festival, butt naked. And he was like, I'll do it. I was like, no, you won't. He was like, well, if I do it, you'll take that Versa board down the upper Golly tomorrow. I was like, sure, man. Well, lo and behold, he goes butt naked, and not only just like runs around all of Golly Fest, he just like hung out for like 30 minutes. So just like walked around, was like going to booths, being like, so tell me about what you got here, like literally butt ass naked. So he followed through so hard that I had to do the upper Golly, and something I would never recommend for anybody. I know like where the bad spots are. I know how to read water, all that kind of stuff, definitely. But it was pretty fun. And after about the first 2 or 3 rapids, I kind of figured out a technique where I would just kind of like when it got bad, I would go down to my hands and knees and kind of hunker down through a spot. And then when I'd get done, I'd stand back up. And it was all right. It was fun. I did pretty good until I got tired. Like from Iron Ring down, I kind of sucked. But up top, I was greasing some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Iron Ring is like, that's still like up there, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't do that again. I'm too old for that now. But it was fun. I got some great pictures of Will naked too.
What was the worst swim you took?
The worst swim I took was at Iron Ring, at the bottom of Iron Ring, because I got separated from the board there.
I think like a pillow rock, you go around the rock and you go about 20 feet deep.
Yeah, I stayed on all the way to the pillow, and I just kind of figured out this technique where I could just get down on my knees, and it has these handles on it. So I would just clamp onto the handles, and even if I fell on, I was holding onto the board. So it really wasn't that bad. But when I got separated from the board at Iron Ring and that lower run out, the board stayed in the current. I got over to the left and was getting swirled around, and then I had to swim a long way down to it, and that part kind of sucked. But everything else was good to go, and I don't know. It was on a bet. There you go. That's the backstory, Jeremy.
Yeah. So hunkering down and like kind of grabbing onto the handles, especially in some of that super chaotic stuff, is also a technique. I mean, it keeps you on the board, and I mean, when you do fall off, and if you're charging something and the water's deep, like maybe the Upper Gully or Kennebec Gorge up here, I mean, you go pretty deep if you wipe out.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got to get back on your board on a big wave train. And I mean, you know, some of those diagonals will power flip you just like a raft or some of those kind of things. So, I mean, there are tactics to some of these rivers. You can't just go to the top at the put in of something big and be like, all right, I'm going to like stand up the whole way down. I mean, it's exhausting. You really got to break things down or, you know, like, or you're just going to do a long swim, and that's just not fun. And at least not me. I mean, it's sometimes fun, but you know, you gotta take a different approach than just like, I'm just gonna get on and send and like beat her down this thing or kook out.
Yeah, I'm a class 2 guy now. I'm done with that. I'm retired. Guys, you have anything else for Jeremy before we let him get back to Maine?
No, I'm here, man. I'm here. I'm like not going anywhere.
What did you go to Smallest of the Walls?
Not this year. You know, I went during their inaugural year. I raced and set safety and those kind of things. They had a great water level this year. I think they had about 15 participants. One woman, Leanne Bernier, she lives in New Hampshire, a great paddler, but she took the win. So it looks like a really, really good time. Just really good water up here this year.
There you go. All right, boys, you got anything else for Jeremy before we say goodbye?
That's all I got.
Jeremy, thanks for coming on the Hammer Factor, man.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot.
Guys, great talking to you. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
You've lowered my dubiousness level ever so slightly. Good work. Thanks, man.
Well, if you guys come up to me, and I'll take you down everything, and we'll figure it out. All right.
Too soft for that.
All right.
Okay, guys.
We'll see ya.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, there you go. Man, you guys were so subdued. I was totally ready for you to just lay into Jeremy there.
He was too nice to unleash on.
Anyway, big
He's
props
too well
for coming on. Should we go into a little viewer mail?
Let's do it.
All right, so we got some viewer mail coming in here. How about Lewis sketch out the outfitting of his dreams, please?
Man.
Outfit, like boat outfitting?
Boat outfitting of his dreams, yeah. So let me just tell you. So what's happening here on the Hammer Factor are a lot of people are listening and hearing the first episode, and they're becoming aware. I mean, I guess they didn't catch it through our huge advertising campaign that we did, or whatever.
Right.
But anyway,
binge listening. Did you say they're binge?
They're binge listening, yeah. So they're going back through our stuff, and so all these comments are coming up from older
hours of us.
Yeah. So. So anyway, someone wants to know. Someone was when you were ripping on everybody's outfitting. Somebody wanted to know what you wanted. So, what's your dream outfitting, please?
Man, okay. So here's the thing. I think that when you sit in the seat of a kayak and you lean forward, which is what you are generally doing when things are getting rowdy, the very lowest point on your back, like just above your ass, is pressing back. And anywhere higher than that on your back is leaning forward. So if you have a back band that's really high on your back, it's getting loose right when you want it to be getting tight. And so what you want is like a pretty low seat back, like higher, like something that kind of splits the difference in height between a back band and the back of the seat that would come on a kayak now. So I want a seat that probably doesn't have a back band at all, but comes up, probably 4 inches higher than it does right now, and is like stiff. So basically something like a slalom boat seat. And
was something like that was Corin, the riot seats, those tray seats, and connected to the top of the boat at all. And they're impossible to put a back band if you want a back band, but it was very much the idea of putting a seat right on the floor of the boat.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the ideal thing, is to have, like a rigid back to the seat that comes up significantly higher. I think that like what the new Waka boats are doing, where the seat attaches on the inside of the boat instead of bolt holes going through like next to the cockpit. So is a good idea, except that I think they move ever so slightly right now, which is like the seat has to not move. That's kind of like a baseline thing. But that, to me, that's the thing. It's like, I think we should just get rid of the back band entirely.
Okay, easy now. Easy. Let's not go crazy.
IR stock just went down.
Okay, here's...
And then, if you need to be able to get into the back of the boat, if that made it too hard, you could potentially like have a back of the seat that would come down and up and like close with like ski boot buckles or something like that.
Like a ratchet back band, maybe? Something like that?
No back bands, man. Back bands are...
All right, well, we're going to keep the ratchet back band as an option.
Okay, moving on. So moving on to summarize, Lewis would like the molding of the seat to come up a little higher and the back band become obsolete, correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'd like to have the seat be a little bit more form-fitting. Like, I like having the legs, the seat come up in the front under your legs, but you can do that with foam. Like, the way the Dagger boats do that now with the ratcheting front, like, I really like having the seat up against your legs like that. I think that's great, but it doesn't need to adjust. It's like you're just creating one more thing that's going to break or you're going to lose or that's heavy. And it's better just to either do it with the molding of the seat or to do it yourself with foam.
All right, there you go.
My idea thing is that I think that all of the outfitting that comes in kayaks now, it's made so that you can go from buying the kayak to paddling the kayak in like 4 minutes. And that's great if you're, like a kayak school or like a livery or something. But if you're going to own the boat yourself, you just want it outfitted for you. You don't need to have all of these like adjustments that, are things that are just going to break over time. Basically, it's like you should just have your boat outfitted and that's it.
Like your back band.
Huh?
Okay, moving on. This comes at us from Fred Morrison. This one's to you, Mr. Weld. Can Weld elaborate on why he doesn't like slicely boats that you can sink the ends in flat water like the Antics?
I don't. It's not that I don't like them. I mean, I've been around long enough. I did squirt boating. I've had lots of low volume slicey boats in my years. I just like. What I like about the Brap, for instance, is that it still has a lot of hull integrity, and to do a really good splat or a good stern squirt requires a good location, so a little bit of technique and some experience. But the boat still paddles like almost like a slalom boat. The really slicey sterns, I just don't need to stern squirt that much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not that interested in stern squirting in flat water and sacrificing the river running ability of a boat that's short of a stern gives. That's kind of my point.
There you go. So in summary, it's all great to squirt, but you're not willing to give up performance of the boat just for that one trick.
Yeah, I've sung the praises of the Brap. The Brap is the perfect combination of river running ability, performance hull, and you can squirt it, but you have to you have to know what you're doing and be in the right place to do it, which I appreciate. Lewis, would you?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. It's like it's a trade-off. You know, if you paddle a boat with a really, really, really small stern, that's basically all you're going to be doing is stern squirts and cartwheels, and it's not going to paddle as well, like for running whitewater.
That just isn't that interesting to me.
All right, there you go. Now here's kind of a long one, but I thought it was worth bringing up. This recently came in, and it came in on episode 2. So somebody was listening to episode 2, and so bear with me here on this one. This was the one where we talked about slalom and kayaking, and we had some of various opinions. Very interesting. This comes from Nathan Butler. Very interesting, and got me thinking if Olympics has ruined slalom in the U.S., then why hasn't it here in the U.K.? I'm from the northeast of the U.K., and the attitudes and relationships to competition kayaking are very different to those from across the pond. In 2009, I spent 5 treasure months traveling and kayaking the U.S. from Maryland to California, stopping at most hotspots in between, and it appears to me the main differences between the two countries are, firstly, sheer size. There are many opportunities in many, if not all, the states to participate in reliable recreational kayaking on natural rivers. In comparison to the UK, where we have to artificially build in gradient to facilitate whitewater progression in order for it to be reliable. This creates a competitive arena where athletes from a young age are channeled into the ideology that is kayaking, and there is no need to know about any other forms because that won't help you win races. Cage paddlers with blinkers set on winning at their discipline, as opposed to recreational encouraged free-range kayakers from the U.S. who experience the fun, informal side of the sport before making an informed decision on what, if any, discipline they would like to pursue. No right or wrong, we have some very impressive athletes going very fast, but with different ambitions and goals. Had they experienced the range of paddle sports opportunities? Maybe. Governing bodies have a lot to answer for. The BCU, British Canoe Union, has big budgets for supporting competitive athletes based on results. This is supposed to assist in growth for recreational paddling. From here, it very much looks like a feeder into competition kayaking rather than a separate entity offering all disciplines, most importantly, including non-competitive. We could learn a lot from each other here, I'd say.
I think that's... Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You know, I mean, I think that if slalom had the kind of, you know, the USA Canoe Kayak had the kind of budget that the British Canoe Union has, especially relative to our population, you know, if there was somebody in every town with whitewater in the country whose full-time job it was to coach kids and hang and maintain gates, I think slalom would be in a totally different place in the U.S., but it's just...
to me, it always comes back to culture, because the fact is that slalom is much more popular in Europe than it is in the U.S. I mean, I think there's no disputing that, right? And while kayaking is still, is an active sport here, slalom paddling is huge over there. I just think that Europeans have a different relationship to individual sports in general than Americans do. It's America's picture individual sports is a very different thing. You know, where like in Europe, climbing or kayaking or cycling, all of these things are taken much more seriously. Where in the U.S., you know, if you do any one of those things, you're kind of a maverick, you know, and you do it on your own or with your crew buddies. You don't think of it in terms of a team sport or a sport that's going to get any kind of help from anybody, you know. And similarly, like there's no one. As much as we talk about slalom and how great it is and how everyone should do it to learn to whitewater, we don't have anyone in the U.S. going out setting up gates. There are very, very few people. There's like, I can think of 4 or 5 people nationwide who are maintaining a slalom course in the United States, you know.
No, I agree. I mean, if I were...
No one wants to do it. Just no one wants to do it, you know.
You know, I think if USA Canoe Kayak had money, and that would be one of the first things I would advocate spending it on, would be just somebody who's, you know, something like equivalent to like the IMBA trail care crews who go around the country and help local groups build and maintain bike trails and like give technical advice and help that stuff happen. It's like if you had a handful of full-time people who you could just send around the country to like engage with local volunteers, help them hang a course, help them deal with, you know, land managers or whatever, and, you know, to help just get these things off the ground. You provide some basic coaching, I think that would go a long way towards participation. It's just something that takes a lot of volunteer time or a lot of somebody's time to make it happen. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, we don't see more like creek races that have a slalom component to it. Like, I think that everybody loves the North Fork race, but the fact is that putting on a slalom race, especially on hard whitewater, it's just a massive amount of work, just hanging gates, having gate judges instead of just having the person at the start and the finish with a stopwatch. It's just way more work, and it takes way more organization, and that's an obstacle.
Here in Confluence, town of 300 people, there's a guy volunteering time to run a softball, baseball team for the kids here. You know what I mean? And I know it's work to get a group of kids out playing baseball. But no, the U.S. people don't think like, I'm going to organize a crew,
So basically you do that. You'd say it's more culture difference than not the fact that slalom's all they got. If they're going paddling, that's what they got.
I think if Americans wanted to race slalom, we would have slalom racing and we'd have a beast organization. If Americans wanted to do that, we would have it, but we don't. We just don't seem to want that,
All right, fellas. Well, we got a bunch more viewer mail, but we don't have time. We're already over our 1 hour allotted time limit here. Our favorite, we love your viewer mail. Thanks for sending those in. Sorry if we don't get back to you on time. I suck at my job here. But anyway, rants and raves, our favorite part of the show. Does anybody have a rant or does anybody have a rave?
I'm going to rave about, I touched on it earlier, but I think it merits more emphasis. Alden Bird's guidebook for New England, Let It Rain. It is just like an excellent guidebook. It's full of awesome photography, and it has that sort of quirkiness to it that all good guidebooks have. When you look at the California guidebook and what you get is basically the put in, the take out, the highest it's ever been run, the lowest it's ever, you would possibly want to run it, and some story about the first descent that may or may not have any bearing on your river trip. And you just get this sense of what it was like for these guys who wrote this guidebook, and the personality of the guidebook authors come through. And even if you don't necessarily run those rivers, it's just an awesome thing to spend your time thumbing through. And I would put Let It Bleed or Let It Rain, sorry, in that same category. It's just such a good guidebook. It makes you want to go kayaking in New England. I highly recommend it.
There you go. John?
I'm going to rave about Newfoundland because I don't think I did it justice earlier. Newfoundland is full of excellent quality whitewater. With very low population density, fantastic wilderness, and there are a lot of roadside runs and things you can get to is just a little bit of tenacity going across some lakes. You don't mind some ferries at the end. Just go there in September, sometime in the early fall, and just kill it because it is unreal. You can drink the water pretty much right out of the rivers because of the tannic acid in the water too.
All right, Newfoundland, Let It Rain, two raves. I'm just going to rant about my broken ribs because I can't do anything and I'm feeling sorry for myself. And I know that there's way bigger things to worry about, but I'm just going to rant about broken ribs because they keep you down and they don't seem to heal. So that's what I got.
Sorry, bud.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, there you have it. We'll shift gears from Whitewater SUP until next week. And
Lewis, you got to learn to stop complaining about this. Keep bringing it to the table until you cut it out.
I'm done. I've said everything I had to say about Whitewater SUP 5 times now. I got nothing left.
Right.
Well, thanks for listening to Hammer Factor, and thank you, John, and thank you, Lewis, and we will see you next week.